Happy New Year, happy 2024. To those of you who do believe it is the new year, although I have my misgivings along with many fellow conspiracy theorists, seeing as the Gregorian calendar actually changed the new year. We know that December should be the 10th month because anything with DEC in terms of Latin is the 10th, NOV obviously means 9th, September is the 7th, so we know that they've messed with our calendar. But we'll put that aside and just say Happy New Year for the meantime. I have been wanting to make a video to somehow capture what I went through, which sounds rough, in 2023 as a way of rounding up that year. But here we are, it's the 12th of January, and I'm finally getting the space to sit down and make this. I've pressed record and stop and discard about 5 times. And at this stage, I've decided whatever comes out of my mouth is entirely what is meant to be. So let's see. I am just back from a short camping trip. And my favorite camping joke is this. What do you think about camping? Intense? Yes, it's very intense. So 2023, for me, was a year of massive intensity. If I jump back a moment towards the end of 2022, I recorded a video which is somewhere on my Instagram feed in which I spoke about this awakening experience and how strange it is to feel somewhat alien to other people and to be having a very different experience of life, even with regard to my husband. So I mentioned in this one video that my husband's watching sport in the living room and I'm in the bedroom and I'm trying to enter the Hridayam, which is the metaphysical spiritual hole in the heart that you drop into in order to access all space and time and high levels of consciousness. And Hridayam is a Sanskrit term, I believe. So I wrote about this and then obviously, let it go. But interestingly, it was only a few months later that I found myself heading off to Bali, and I was told by my spiritual guides that I was going for a heart activation. And what transpired was this extraordinary heart activation. So really, this literal dropping into the Hridayam, although I wasn't doing it consciously, I wasn't sitting there trying to do it, it just happened. But I had set that intention. I share this because the intentions we set, the thoughts we hold, we're creating it all. It is the truth of this creation, this thing that we call reality, is so mind-blowing that as you get deeper and deeper into it, it involves such a letting go of everything you thought you knew before. So I started last year with a massive spiritual awakening, with waves of gratitude flooding through my system. The awakening period of this particular awakening lasted about 2 weeks. And during this time, I would cry 5-10 times a day with gratitude, with joy. I downloaded multiple things like all the time. And one of the most potent, I remember sitting, looking over at my forest. We have a small forest in the corner of our garden. And I remember just hearing, you are here because you've chosen to put your consciousness here. The only reason you are having this earth experience is because of where you have placed your awareness. But you, where you have placed your awareness, you are still home with God. But you've chosen to project a portion of your consciousness into this earth body to have this experience. You are still home with God. And what a gift it is to be gifted a human life. So I was very, you can imagine, just overwhelmed with the rapture and the beauty of these experiences. Love flowing literally through my body in a way I've never felt before. Cosmic love. This isn't, just love that we have for other humans. It was like that on steroids. Beautiful waves of divine love. There may be some background noise. I can hear a truck in the road because I've had to keep all the doors open because it is beautifully hot. It is summer in Cape Town. And by the way, I'm Amanda Lamond, and I run the Ministry of Eternal Light and Awakening Lawyers. So I had this extraordinary, blissful experience, like on and off, jumping into the fifth dimension, all the things that I've read about and been studying and had the intention to experience, but suddenly there I was having these experiences, dropping the body entirely. It was beautiful, but unfortunately short-lived, because at the end of that 2-week period, I was thrust back into normal life in the matrix, and in this case, all of my ego issues then resurfacing. So every issue that I've ever had, and the ego has several main self-limiting beliefs. We each have our own set of self-limiting beliefs. There are about 12, and if I read you the list now, which I've done in other videos, you would understand and immediately see which ones are your particular go-tos that your ego has hooked onto, which stories. It's almost like we're all just playing a fairly limited number of roles, if you like, when it comes to the egoic identity. So last year was a year of massive intensity. I was told that I'm here to run the Ministry of Eternal Light. I had seen visions of this ministry since 2018, but didn't understand what it was, because I have always, for a long time, been aware that my path is not one of religion. It is multi-faith, and it is more about direct experience of God than of scriptures and learning of God through other experts or priests or teachers or words. It is the direct experience in the body of God. Again, not to go into a whole bunch of detail, but I've become aware that the biggest disservice that's been done to humanity through multiple religions is that God is a being outside of ourselves instead of inside of us, that we access through the heart, through the Hridayam. So it was a year of such massive intensity, and I found that although I was able to create a few programs for people, including Waterfall of Wisdom, which is so beautiful, and I'm going to relaunch that this year, 2024, but this time helping hold people through it, because what I've realized is that so much is pouring through, is that this isn't that some people can't just take a program like this and listen to it on their own, but it needs to be done in a supportive container, because we have these like awakenings and we have these questions, and we need to be held in community. So the next program I created was called Held, and Held is going to be a physical and metaphysical container this year of people who are on the ascension path and wanting to be held through it, because it is tough. Awakening is not at all what I thought it would be. There are a lot of funny memes about spiritual awakening and people videos of people being dragged through a bush backwards. And honestly, that's what it feels like. A lot of me thought that spiritual awakening would be this like beautiful, gentle thing, and I just become this really peaceful, Zen-like person, radiating calm. And I'd have this glowing aura about me, and well, it turned out that actually being on the spiritual path is a purging of all of your shadow self, all of your triggers, all of your ego identity, and then letting go of who you are completely. It is wild. It is coming face to face with the most unwanted, unloved parts of ourselves, which is very hard. And then it is about coming to terms with all the unwanted and unloved and most unspeakable parts of the world, everything that's been projected into form by humanity. It is learning to understand all of this, all of the darkness that has been perpetuated on this planet in its entirety, and then learning to see that from a higher perspective. So spiritual awakening is about moving from the identity egoic construction of how we have always thought ourselves to be, like me, Amanda Lamond, in this body. I am this body, I am this mind. That's what I've always thought. And now, on this path of spiritual awakening, I have realized that this is just a fraction of who I am, in many ways an irrelevant fraction, although that sounds wrong. It's everything and it's nothing. This is just a physical vehicle for me to experience this one lifetime, which is a drop in the ocean. I have had multiple lifetimes, as have you, as have we all. And this piece of us that's incarnated physically, that it goes up and up and up. We exist in multiple dimensions at once. Now, it's been a very intense 2023, but I would say 2022 as well. My awakening probably deepened and intensified, and I'm not going to go into the whole story, but when I became a channel in 2012, when I realized I could channel, but really my eyes have been opened, and I've seen through this kind of veil of this illusion of this matrix that we're in during 22 and 23. So it's really only been 2 years to grapple with an entirely new reality. And that's been challenging. It's been challenging mentally, physically, emotionally, financially, every which way. To jump to one of the biggest realizations, when we awaken, it is a shift from being predominantly fear-based to being predominantly love-based. And we start to understand that fear and love are a polarity, because we're here to experience duality. So there's always two sides to everything. We can only experience light because there is darkness. Light cannot know itself. So in order for light to see itself, there has to be darkness so that it can illumine, and then it has an effect. If there is only light, there is only light. In order for there to be cold, there has to be hot. So in order for there to be love, we have to experience its absence. And the absence of love is fear. So most of this false matrix that we are in, and again, this is a term I go into in lots of my other teachings and we'll speak about more shortly, the whole matrix is programmed to run on fear. This is the Wetiko virus that's been pushed into humanity. It is promulgated on the news, on everywhere we go, billboards. This fear and, scary movies, horror movies. Just think of the soundtracks of all the movies, like on Netflix, completely making the central nervous system feel this fear all the time. Look at all the movies that are out now, The End of the World or whatever it's called, trying to program us all with fear. So fear is only the absence of love, and that is the love of the Creator, that we are not separate, that this is all an illusion, that we are home with God, that we're safe, whole, that we can never die, that we are immortal, we're eternal, that we are sparks of the divine. Of course, we don't know this, and so we come here, have this experience of complete amnesia, and we feel terrified and alone and separate from Source. So then we are easily programmed with fear. In my own life, it's now become apparent. There's a beautiful message I downloaded that I will be sharing this year on my Ministry of Eternal Light podcast, which I'll put on Instagram, and I'll be putting it on YouTube. All of these messages. And this message is about, if you want to know where you have the most awakening work to do, we are to look at what area are you still frightened, in what area do you still carry the most fear, and get the most triggered and become the version of yourself that you don't really want to be. And for me, it's become very clear that the two stickiest areas are finances, in my financial situation, much to my shame and embarrassment, that has been one of the areas in which I keep defaulting back into ego. So while I understand I'm creating it all, I'm projecting this entire reality from my consciousness, and it's a gift to be given a human life. All of the things I know to be true. When it comes to money, I'm like, where's my dog going? There's probably a squirrel. When it comes to money, that's when I default back into ego, and I think, and I'm in fear and scarcity, working through that huge lesson. And it's multifaceted because I didn't grow up in scarcity, but the programming of this matrix is to keep us all in scarcity, so to keep us working for the machine. And again, going to that elsewhere. So for me, finances, and then my marriage. So for most of us, it will be a relationship, could be with anybody in your life. I've healed a lot of the relationships with my family, which is key for all of us. And it may mean walking away. You got the family you got for very specific reasons. And I feel like I've got to a stage where I'm mostly at peace with my family. But in my marriage, we trigger each other enormously, and I find myself being this version of myself I don't want to be. I have the most beautiful channeled message, which I'm going to listen to a few times and decide which parts of it to share. Because obviously it's personal, but in this message, it was explained to me by my beautiful guides that my marriage is my spiritual work. This is not like marriage over there and spiritual work over there. That learning to love unconditionally and to master all those triggers, which are just childhood wounds, which obviously come up. That's why we get married. That's what this whole thing of relationships are, to mirror, 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 and to provide us with another opportunity to heal the wounds of childhood. In energetic terms, what this means, because that's like a psychological term, in energetic terms, what it means is, when we were children, we had these wounding experiences. We made up beliefs around ourselves. We weren't able to feel our feelings because we weren't helped. So most kids are not given a full, emotional support of how to process your feelings, that they are physical, that they move through the body, that they need to be released, and that if you don't, the dense energy, which is the emotion, gets stuck in your etheric field, because it hasn't been felt through to completion. Because an energy is energy in motion, it needs to move through and leave the body. When it has not been able to do that, it stays in the etheric body. So we literally have these pockets of density around us, which are the past, the things we could not feel. If you refuse to feel, you cannot heal. So what happens then in our adult life, and keeps happening, is that these pockets of density get triggered. These are memories which are literally around us, and something will trigger that old thing which hasn't been healed. It feels like it's here now, and we react to it literally like we would very often when we were children. So we get completely, angry. You might throw things. You think later, you think, who was that person? Like, oh my God, that's not who I am. But all of that behavior is being triggered back to, because remember, time doesn't exist. All the parts of us at all ages exist simultaneously. So we just are regressing to a much earlier version of ourselves. So my marriage, where I get so easily triggered, into all my childhood wounds, and then financial situation are for me the two biggest challenges. And I wonder if you are aware of where your biggest challenges. So think about it. It's the areas in which you're most fearful. So what are you most fearful about happening in your whole life? Which area of your life do you go back into fear and scarcity and lack and shame, and you run the programs? Wherever you're running the programs, that's where you have the most work to do in terms of loving and forgiving it all. 2023 was just about navigating this intensity. I created a free audio program towards the end of the year called Navigating the Insanity of Ascension. And that was really my way of testing the waters, I suppose, and seeing how much of myself I was prepared to reveal and how vulnerable I could be. And it's had an amazing reception. So about 150, 200 people, I don't know, have taken that course, and people have written to me. It's just 6 audios long. It's probably an hour and a half, 2 hours in total running time. And I'm sharing many channeled messages from the Council of Light and my own experience in navigating ascension. It's clear that I've reached this point where I need to step fully into what I'm here to do, which is be an ascension teacher. However, this has been the obstacle, and I've seen it now. So last year there was just so much going on and navigating emotionally, and I had panic attacks at one stage. It was just, I had another miscarriage. There was so much going on. So up and down and just trying to get my head above water is what it felt like. What I'm being shown now, though, is I have in my past learned how to lead a double life in order to keep people happy. So the people-pleasing part of me, that ego part, which believes I will only be loved if I show up a certain way, has been running the show. So when I was in high school, I had an older boyfriend. I was so bored of high school, so completely and totally over it, and dated a guy who was a little bit older. And I started going to rave parties and taking loads of drugs. And basically I was like, oh my God, there's this whole other world outside of the school I'd been in for 12 years, the same school, with this uniform that was like this and hairband like this, and your skirt had to be here. And, it was very restrictive. A beautiful school in so many ways, but oh my God, like Matrix Deluxe. And I had no idea that I'm this free spirit who came here for a wild ride. Anyway, I developed at that stage a double life, so that I was a prefect and head of house at school, but I was also taking huge amounts of drugs and, taking acid and ecstasy and going to raves. But I was also a virtually straight A student. Now, what's interesting is you get people who, are rebellious at school. It's by no means unusual, but for a lot of those people, they are, directly like, fuck the system and I'm doing my own thing. Whereas I was playing both sides. Like, okay, I'll be the straight A student and the prefect and the head of house, but I'm also going to be doing that. And this continued at university for several years until the wheels came off completely. But only 4 years later. So leading this double life, like I'll be who you want me to be. So I'm on the Dean's Merit List at university for academic performance so that everybody, stays happy. Meanwhile, I'm completely massive. I'm an alcoholic and I'm an addict, which I didn't obviously realize at the time. But, my life's completely chaotic. But as long as I keep this front on. The reason that I'm sharing this, because I'm totally at peace with all of these experiences now from my past. They've totally made me who I am. I was forced at the age of 24 to do some serious spiritual searching because I was so broken with my addiction, and it's all perfect as it is. The reason that it's important is that it's been shown to me now that there's part of me that's still tempted to lead a double life. The reason that this whole double life thing has been shown to me again is that there's part of me still wanting to lead a double life now. And really, this is the crux of my message today, and I should have led with this. In order to fit in with society, with the friends that I still have, with, some family members, extended family, social circles, school, whatever, there's part of me that is very scared of showing up fully as who I am. So in some ways, I am still leading, or have been led back into leading, a double life where there is Amanda, the ascension teacher, and then there is Amanda, who's, mom and wife and was once a lawyer, and people think I'm a coach, whatever. I'm realizing it's time to stop hiding, and that the cost of not revealing fully who I am and not being who I am in all situations and circumstances, the same, is like I'm bearing the cost. And so with some trepidation, it feels like, okay, 2024, it came to me, it's the year of revelation. Now, I think it's going to be a year of revelation globally. We've already started this year with some pretty dark revelations around, oh gosh, just all of this craziness in the world. Epstein and all the people who are involved in child trafficking. And it's appalling, and it is dark, and it is much bigger than you probably know unless you're very awake. And of course, we've got the ongoing, COVID crap and everything that's coming out around the massive harm that has been done to humanity over the last few years. So a lot more people are waking up as all of this stuff comes out. Obviously, the purchase of Twitter, X, by Elon Musk is quite interesting, because it's now created this platform where people can just share, and the stuff that I'm seeing shared, nobody was able to share the stuff, a year or 2 years ago. So this is a year of revelation, and it's a year of revelation for me personally. So I looked up quickly, what does revelation mean? And it's quite interesting. So the act of revealing or disclosing. Something revealed, especially a dramatic disclosure of something not previously known or realized. Then we've got in the Merriam-Webster dictionary, revelation is an act of revealing or making known divine truth, or something that is revealed by God to humans. It can also mean an act of revealing to view or making known, or a surprising or astonishing disclosure. In religion and theology, revelation is the disclosing of some form of truth or knowledge through communication with a deity or other supernatural entity or entities. So my own path has been one of revelation, beginning with, when I started realizing I was channeling, and I was like, who am I talking to? Who are these guides? What are you here to tell me? And then writing down files full of information. But really only in 2020, 21, 22, when I started being given a whole lot of information about the enslavement of our planet, what has happened here for the last 200,000 years, how we are setting ourselves free. The truth is wilder than anything I could possibly have, made up. I have compared it recently to, it's like waking up inside a sci-fi film and realizing that only a few people on the planet are aware of this extraordinary truth, which is that humanity has been suppressed and enslaved by off-planet entities for 200,000 years, and now only 5% of the planet is awake, and they're trying to warn the other 95% who are going, you are batshit crazy, and there's this massive spiritual intergalactic war going on, and it's completely nuts, and, hectic effects. Well, yeah, that's kind of what's actually happening on the planet, and it is very strange to find myself part of this 5%. And of course that sounds immediately like, well, she's saying she knows things I don't know. No, this is for everybody to know. But it is part of the spiritual path. and what I've been guided to, and I would have thought that I would have lost my mind by now, and what's helped me and kept me going is all of the other people who are discovering these same truths, who share about them. So I think about this beautiful woman who was putting her makeup on, a lot of makeup, while talking about the aliens in the Miami Mall recently. You may or may not have seen stuff about that. And then I think about, oh gosh, there are so many beautiful teachers out there who are teaching about ascension and who are being fully themselves. And I look at these videos and I think, wow, I wonder what your family thinks. So some are sharing more about what I call the vertical awakening, which is realizing we're multidimensional, we're creating all of this. And then talking about how we access our multidimensional self, our I am presence, just this extraordinary waking up to the fact that we're not the ego self. This is an illusion, this constructed identity that we think we are. It's just these pockets of dense energy. And then there are others, and so that's the vertical. And then there are others who have been more focused on the horizontal awakening, which is looking at what has happened upon the planet. So in the physical realm, so you've got a metaphysical realm, and then we've got the physical realm. And what's been going on the planet and the history that's been hidden from us, and that's also wild. So that this understanding of what's happened on the planet is so important, so that we don't continue the mistakes of the past as we build the new earth. We need to understand. So we can't just do this, oh, love and light, oh my God, everything's amazing, Christ consciousness. We have to understand the darkness, because this light flooding in illuminates the darkness. That's what all of this has been about, personally and collectively. So inside us and outside us, the darkness has to come to light so that we can enter this new period of humanity that has been prophesied since forever. Mayans, Egyptians, you name it, everybody's known that this time will come when the world must begin anew, because we have lost our way. The horizontal awakening is so necessary, the part about our enslavement, because we need to understand what has happened in order that we don't repeat it when we create new systems. And we need to know the truth, because anchoring in the truth is information, information is light, light is information. So all of that is shifting and changing us. So it's not that you need to go out there when you learn certain dark truths and you have to fight it all and do stuff yourself. Simply knowing the truth anchors in the vibration of truth on this planet. And what happens on this planet is the sum total of every consciousness, because we're creating it. You, me, every single person on this earth, what we are thinking, all those thoughts and feelings are projecting this experience of earth. So that's why it's constantly changing. We're not in a fixed reality. It is the sum total of all of our consciousness projecting outwards. Now, we've been enslaved because it's a whole long story, but basically, if you imagine that there's this negative timeline, like with all the bad news and the end of the world movies and all of these stuff, and like scarcity and inflation, and we've destroyed the environment, and global warming, and basically everything's fucked, that whole train of thought has got us projecting a negative timeline, because that's what we've been shown. And actually, it's not going to happen. We are entering the time of the greatest light this planet has ever known. So this year for me is one of revelation. I need to stand in the truth of who I am, to be the ascension teacher I came here to be, to share as many messages that I am receiving with you, which will be done through the Ministry of Eternal Light at eternal.light.ministry on Instagram, and on YouTube, Eternal Light Ministry. And it's been a big jump for me. So back to momentarily to this thing of leading a double life, because I was once a lawyer briefly a million years ago, and then built a business around serving lawyers. There are all these old versions of Amanda who wouldn't dare do what I am doing now. So the version of me that was running conferences for women lawyers with sponsorship from big law firms, I ran programs in big law firms, all of those parts of me, I love them, but I have to put them down, because those versions are the past. And it's keeping me stuck when I sometimes think about who's on my mailing list, and oh my God, if I send this out, what will they think? And part of this awakening process is learning that everybody is just seeing you through their own lens. So I will share messages about reality, this simulation that we're in, but just for, and delve down more deeply into this extraordinary concept. But just for a moment, I want you to think about the fact that you don't have a fixed identity. Because think about like the way you view yourself. 1 minute you're thinking I'm pretty cool, the next moment you're going I'm a disaster area. It's changing all the time, just depending on your feelings and what's going on. Did you get a raise today? Did you lose your job? Whatever's happening, your spouse told you you're a moron, whatever. You are constantly changing your own impression of how you see yourself. Now it's the same with other people. Everybody who everybody in your entire life has only seen you in certain moments. Nobody's seen the entirety. So everybody's just seen certain moments, and that has been filtered through this their own filter of who they are, how they were raised. So they're not seeing you as you are. They're seeing you as they are. So if they grew up in a family where people speak quietly, they might think you're very brash and loud, or if they grew up in a family where people are very articulate, then they might think that you're a bit of a wallflower and inarticulate. Whatever it is, we are only ever seeing people through our own lens. So any criticism we receive, stuff that people say, it's them. And yet we've been raised to be outward looking so that we depend, literally our egos believe that I depend upon other people liking and loving me in order to survive. So this goes back to very, very early. This isn't a logical process. This is a subconscious process that's going on. That if I reveal who I truly am, I will be alone, I'll be shunned, I'll be shamed, and I literally won't survive. So in order to transcend all of these programs, it's really big work. We have to learn that people will say what they say. And I feel like I've had a very thin skin, again, my upbringing, all the programs. And last year got some feedback, which I found very hard because I took it all personally. And, a sibling said that, you appear unhinged online and various things. I lost a dear friend who's very religious and thinks the fact that I channel means that I'm in darkness and deception, and that I just need to pray and be with God. And it's fascinating because I am closer to God than I have ever been. The amount of discovering my own divinity and this love pouring through my body, and these moments that I still have where everything is perfect and I'm able to see the world with God's eyes. This direct experience, not read, but direct experience of God in my body has changed me forever. I'm not the Amanda I thought I would be. I'm here to serve. I'm here to serve the light. And so it is in some ways so anomalous, so strange to understand that someone might reject me because I'm not close enough to God in their ways, in their eyes, or I'm in the darkness, when I've never felt so much light. So all of these challenges over the last year have been tough, but I'm being shown you keep going, you overcome, you stand in the truth of who you are. And because I've realized the cost is enormous of not doing so, it's now time that I stand in that truth, and whoever needs to fall away will fall away. We were with friends camping over New Year, and one of them, I said something about the planet being enslaved, and he was like, well, what if I don't believe that it's been enslaved? And it was interesting because I didn't really have a response to that. I'm like, it just is. And so this is something that I probably will have to grapple with this year, and that's why I will be sharing these messages of how reality is constructed and how we are each in our own reality. And because I've become very clear on this aspect, of course, in time, I default back into this, well, why can't you see what I see? Because we forget, we think that everybody's in the same reality. I mean, we all do this. Why are people acting like that, But because we're judging their actions according to the view of the world we have. But they're behaving according to the worldview they hold, not our worldview. But because of this understanding, I now have very little desire to convince anybody of anything. My time to convince people and argue and debate, gone. It's so interesting. No desire to try and convince people. I feel I've been shown so much about the different timelines separating. So, we had this and now we've got these two spheres that have separated. And it's really getting to the last stages now where we won't be in each other's reality anymore. And so I don't feel any desire to convince or explain anything to anybody who doesn't want to know. If you don't believe the planet's been enslaved, cool, great, on to the next person. I'm here for those who want to know, who need to know, who are driven to know, and to share what I have discovered over this very rapid fire last 2 years of awakening, and then of course going all the way back to when I first started channeling, and to share with you the messages from the Council of Light. So let me just end this message with wrapping up that this is the year of revelation. I feel particularly compelled to support light workers who are here to anchor in this light, but who are struggling, like I have, with the discombobulation of realizing you're not who you thought you were. You're a multidimensional being, you're intergalactic, you're here during this battle between light and dark. That's wild. So if you're struggling a little bit to get on with friends and family and just watch Netflix and chill and work your job, well, yeah, I'm here to support you through that. There are those who have this, sense of a mission or purpose that is coming through them that they know they are here to fulfill. And so I work with those people. Those are my favorite people to work with, where there's a sense of there's this mission and I can help you uncover that and do readings for you with your guides to help put you in the right direction. We don't do any future predictions at all. It's about what's in my way, what do I need to know. It is just beautiful, loving guidance being held by our luminous teams. So, year of revelation, and I know that this year is going to be hard for a lot of people because the revelations are going to come thick and fast. And so I have found just learning everything that I have over 2 years really challenging. And for those who are doing it in an even shorter period of time, like 6 months or a few weeks, learning everything so fast, it is going to be very discombobulating. But light workers who've been on this path, who know what's been going on this planet, who are aware of the darker side of our enslavement and why everything is so messed up on the planet at this time, we are here to hold others. Oh, another really loud motorbike. I live near a beautiful, one of the most beautiful roads in the world, Chapman's Peak, which goes from Noatuk to Hout Bay. But unfortunately, a lot of motorbikes love to ride this, and then they rort with their motorbikes gunned up and make a huge amount of noise. So we are likely to have disclosure this year of things that are going to make people very distressed. And I'm going to look at how I broach these topics and help hold people in the light, with the remembrance always that it's only by holding sufficient light in our bodies that we're able to hold the amount of darkness that needs to come to light now. It's a planetary healing. It's not about do I choose to know. It's like we're here and we need to know the truth. So I'm going to finish off with one message from the Council of Light. It's all a giant cosmic classroom serving your highest growth at all times. But your highest growth doesn't always feel good, because growth doesn't always feel good. You don't find yourselves in the middle of a crisis saying, "This is so great, wow, how much am I learning?" This only happens much later. But you have entered a different era upon the earth. Though many of you are clinging to the past, things are different now, dear ones. Now you can choose to avoid some of this suffering. This is what is being offered to mankind in this moment. You have the chance, multiple chances of healing things, because they are being presented to you in every moment. In fact, it has always been this way, but now you are seeing it, you are sensing it. This is how it is different, because you are different. Yes, beloveds, you have upgraded massively, many of you, although you are not yet aware, because these changes are subtle shifts in your frequency which change your perception. So all that is happening is that you are sensing what previously was outside of your awareness. And what you're perceiving is a multidimensional perspective on the problem. Before, you would only see the problem or obstacle you were facing. Now you see the possibility it holds for your healing and release from something that no longer serves you. But you have to see this for yourself. No one can see it for you. This conversation speaks to the capacity developing greatly in many of you humans who are committed to the ascension path. You are more and more able to find the higher perspective on an earthly obstacle, no matter how painful, and you are encouraging each other to do so. This is why there's a plethora of coaches upon the planet, each one just wanting to share some of what they have learned and been through to help others. It is like this that you grow the light. So this is how we grow the light. We develop a different perspective on what has happened, a higher perspective. So just as we do this work in our own lives to transcend the obstacles, the trauma you faced in your life, the abuse, the neglect, the violence, like whatever you have been through, the loss, the grief, the suffering, when you let this mold you into the extraordinary, strong, powerful being that you are today, you give everything a purpose, a bigger meaning than just the suffering. And in the same way now we're being asked to look at the suffering on the earth, the wars and the violence, and know it all has to come to light in order for this healing to happen. So it's not going to be necessarily an easy year. I don't want to, foretell of doom and gloom. There is light flooding in. So much joy is possible and accessible to us, but we have to learn to access it through the multidimensional self, because if we're in the egoic self, we will only see the fear and destruction. So I'm here to help lead people back to their multidimensional awareness, to help you discover your own divinity. It is a homecoming like no other. And this means standing in the truth of who I am, despite the fact that so often I'm sucked back into this 3D story and the egoic Amanda, and why is this like this, and all the rage and frustration. And then I dip into who I truly am, which means letting go of this whole personality identity, because none of those stories are really who I am. I just picked them up during this lifetime. But you are pure source consciousness witnessing yourself. It's wild. I'm wishing you a beautiful year, and I am so excited to be sharing so many messages that help explain all of this and will literally shift you just through the listening of them. I have finally got them all onto my laptop, and the podcast episodes will come out as fast as I'm able to put them out. and then various programs. The first one that started coming through me yesterday, which will be launched, I think, next week, it's an ascension program for those of you really just looking to step into more light. The name came to me this morning, but it's gone now. I'll find it. Wishing you a revelatory 2024. And thank you for being here. Thank you for watching this. Stepping into who you truly are and not giving a fuck what people think is not easy for someone who's really been trained to care what everybody thinks, with a great deal of codependence thrown in. But this is my year, so here goes. The last word I want to give to the Council of Light, my beloved luminous team who have supported me through so much. They talk about the massive mental breakdown happening across the planet at this time and have given me this advice. It will take many strong teachers teaching as publicly as they are able to, as you know circumstances will soon be changing upon your planet. You will need to be sharing the word of what is happening as widely as possible. Trust that those who are meant to will find whatever you put out there. It is only important that you put it out there. We know you suffer from the programs telling you that you are not far enough along the journey to be sharing about it. To this we say, dear one, you are. You are more than ready, and there are so many you wouldn't believe who are about to wake up and need your voice, your love, and your courage sharing your story. It will be a tsunami, and you will meet it with your soft shores of love and guidance.